Pandora's box is about to open wide.
Welcome to Pandora's box, everybody. How's it going, guys?
Really good, man.
How's the guitar going, Drew? How's the custom-built Pandora's box guitar going?
Ah, nice, man. I spoke to some. I don't think I've told you, but there's this thing called the Men's Shed, like here in Ludlow,
right.
And I think they've got them all over the UK actually, and it's like a charity-run thing where they do like woodwork and things like that. So basically,
not gay
like,
orgies, then.
No, not gay orgies, but like it's just like woodwork and bits and bobs, and they got loads of machinery and that, like bandsaws, drill presses,
nice.
all the stuff that you need to like do bigger jobs. So I basically went in there and said, like, I'm planning on like building some guitars and stuff and doing some bits, so like can I come and use some of the bits sometimes? So been chatting to the guys there and stuff, and I was sanding down the neck on this guitar, but I was doing it with 1200 grit sandpaper, which is like super fine, and I was like thinking, like, why is it taking me so long? And they were like, yeah, dude, like literally, did that take you like days to do that, to get through that? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, you wanted to use about 250 grit like, to get through the lacquered finish, you know. And I was using like 1200, but that is smooth as you like, so it's really nice. But but
nice,
like
man.
to get actual through the lacquer, it just took like a hell of a long time. But yeah, it's all sanded now and everything. You probably won't be able to see on the camera, but it looks a bit whiter.
I guess I can tell a bit, yeah.
So that's still lacquered because I'm going to leave that lacquered.
Yeah, I can tell.
And then that's more white because it's all sanded down.
Yeah, the headstock looks a bit more like beige, whereas the neck looks a bit more like cream.
Yeah, and that's like a bit. The headstocks have got a bit of a shine to it, but this is more like matte. So I'm just going to oil. I'm going to oil the neck next. And
I hope whoever wins it sends us a video of them like shredding with it. We can put in the pod.
Hopefully they can shred on it. If not, they'll just have to show us a video of them playing "Come As You Are" by Nirvana.
Yeah.
Do. Or like, what is it? What's that song that everyone used to play back when we were learning to play guitar, Drew? White Stripes.
Yeah.
Seven Nation Army.
Do.
Yeah.
Everyone used to play that back in the day, didn't they?
It
On
was
the
like
guitar.
Teen Spirit. That was another one.
Yeah.
Once you start strumming a bit, once you start getting that strum on a bit, and Smoke on the Water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Smoke on the Water, Come As You Are,
Seven Nation Army.
Seven Nation Army, and Smells Like Teen Spirit. They're like OG learning, had a guitar for like a month.
Born in the USA as well. That was whenever I was learning to do acoustic and like watch just like YouTube videos on it. Almost every first lesson was like, we're going to play Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA.
What are the chords for that? Can you remember?
I can't even know. I don't even know how it goes.
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while, so I can't remember.
Sounds banging.
I think there was literally just two chords. It was very simple.
Is it?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Oh, fuck no. I mean, who knows?
It'd be one of those.
Yeah, probably one of those. My guitar's really out of tune for a start. Born in the Yeah, if we had a bit of time, we had to figure it out. Probably not the best time for it. Probably the best not time for it. Right, let's talk about some random interesting tidbits of information, shall we? Did you know that at the moment, every year, there are more murders in South Africa than in all of Europe, the UK, all of North America, and Australia combined?
Ooh.
It's a mental place.
That's insane.
Yeah. There's been all those crazy murders, haven't there, in
It's
South
a lot
Africa?
of hostility.
Have you heard about
I
it?
haven't, no.
About like a lot of like white people being killed and stuff in South Africa. Yeah. There's like, you can look up a map at the moment on the internet. If you look up, I think, The World in Maps, South Africa Murders, maybe look that up. And in blue, it shows like all the nations, that aren't South Africa, and then South Africa is in red. And then at the moment, every year, 27,000 people are being killed a year in South Africa, whereas in all the countries I mentioned combined, there are 22,000. And if you look at it, like South Africa is obviously so small compared to all of the other regions combined. Yeah, pretty mental, isn't it?
That is insane. I'm looking at it
I remember
now.
when my mum went there, like that, and she went there, and like even like the little place she was staying in, that like everywhere's got like bars on the windows and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just as standard, like your houses have bars all on the windows and loads more security and
almost like
do you remember
Jono
telling us that stuff as well when we went on that at the expo once, and he was like just chatting to us about the things that would happen there, and you know, and his friends, like, you know, that like wife got raped and killed and stuff, and just it's
absolutely
just
crazy,
over
isn't it?
there.
Yeah, for people that don't know, Jono is a guy that used to work at Aspen Waite. Back in the day, he worked at Aspen Waite for about 10 years. And yeah, he was originally from Zimbabwe, which is obviously in Africa. But obviously, yeah, very similar to basically like a South African, you know, in like his upbringing. But yeah, I had some crazy stories. Yeah, like sort of a mate of mine that lives in my village, Joe, he's South African. He used to be a ranger in South Africa, and his job was like to like catch poachers that were trying to kill rhinos and that.
Whoa.
So he had a full-on exciting, high-octane job, and now he's like an electrician in Stagersi, which is like so hilariously tame compared, isn't it? But
I always get on so well with South Africans as well.
Yeah, me too.
Like I used to work with this South African called Kathy Botha, and I'd be
remember
like,
that.
Hello, Kathy Botha, and she'd be like, hello, my boy. And she'd always just call me my boy. She'd be like,
hello,
what
my
you
boy.
doing today, my boy? You're gonna come round for a braai, my boy. I'll get what was her husband called? Oh God, I can't remember his name. That's so annoying. But she's like, I'll get him to cook you some meat on the braai.
Nice, man. Yeah.
What is the root problem over there? Is there like a lot of segregation still? Is it?
I don't claim to be like an expert on it at all, but I think a lot of it stems from basically a lot of the black population really don't like the white population, and as a result, as basically more and more power has been given back to the black population over the course of the past decades, I guess the hope was that would be like just like a respect thing, and then like, you know, everyone would live in harmony. But what's sort of happening instead is that the more sort of like power was relinquished by the more like the whiter community, the more that suddenly the whiter community just started getting targeted, and now it's gotten to the extent where they're just like there's loads and loads of white people just like murdered every day,
right? And
it's just become like way more dangerous. And I think I haven't looked into it as much as I should, because it seems to be like a very interesting topic and obviously quite a troubling topic. But I don't know if it's one of the main politicians in like South Africa is like openly calling for like the genocide of like white people in South Africa.
Whoa.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I
know as well. Even within their own people, like in Africa, I'm not sure if it's specifically South Africa, but I remember we watched this film, and it's where like the kids get like groomed into being like militia and stuff, and like jungle militia, and and they'll get like recruited into these like armies and stuff, and just do like horrendous things to other people, but they get them to do it when they're really young, so it almost becomes ingrained in them super young. And I watched a film recently, and it was like crazy about it, and it's like real graphic and stuff, and they just pull over this lorry on the side of the road and that, and like make the guy kneel down and make this little kid just bash him over the head with like this machete and stuff, and it's like they'll just normalize it completely and say that they're like kings. They're like, yeah, you're a king, you're a soldier and stuff, you know, and just completely mess these kids up. And it was like a massive problem over there, and like there was these little militia going around in groups, and they would become like a family, but like all just, you know, and it was that was more like civil war kind of stuff, I think, what that was about. But it was definitely in Africa, and it was really eye-opening seeing it. And like, you know, they would like literally like rape the women and pull the kids off them, and like just stamp on the kids and stuff, you know. And
is this Rwanda?
During the
Rwandan genocide?
I don't know. I'll have to look up what the film was. And
we learned a lot about in school. We had to watch a movie about the Rwandan genocide.
Oh, really?
What's the name of the? I don't know. It was a really interesting conflict. It was between the Tutsis and the.
I don't really know anything about it, to be honest with you, man.
I think it began with a H. But one group was essentially treated better for years and years by, I believe, Europe when they came over and, you know, colonized a lot of the places. And once they left, and it was sort of like power again sort of become to both people, the larger group of people were the ones that were mistreated more over time, and they sort of there was just such a hate that built that they actually tried to do a genocide on the other like group of people, whether it's the Tutsis and I wish I could remember what the other one was. I'm sure it began with a H. But yeah, really, really interesting. I think the film was called Hotel Rwanda.
Oh, right.
But an interesting film you should check out if you're interested in it. I think NATO had to go over and like sort of stop the conflict in the end. I don't think it actually did end with a full genocide, but it was like a lot of people died, man.
Really?
A crazy amount of people died.
Yeah, I think the main person that's seems to be the head of this like trouble at the moment in South Africa seems to be EFF leader Julius Malema. I don't actually know what EFF stands for, to be honest with you. But yeah, he says he will not stop singing the chant "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer." That's like a sort of a chant for his political party, and obviously the Boers is like basically like white Africans. What's this? I've got something up a minute. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, Drew, but can you hear this, Drew? Or no? People on the radio will be able to hear anyway, or people listen to the pod. Economic Freedom Fighter. That's what EFF stands for. Yeah, but I think a lot of white people are being targeted and killed in Africa at the moment. All right. Well, to be honest, he didn't really even talk about what that freaking...
What is the Boer? Any idea?
I just know that's like the name for sort of like white Africans, really.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so you know, hear like the Boer War and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. But I said, interesting topic. But I mean, regardless of you know, rights and wrongs and things like that, the fact of the matter is it seems like a lot of people are getting murdered every single year in South Africa. I know that guy Joe that lives in the village with me, South African guy, he said that like every time he goes back to South Africa now, which isn't like very often, he says he finds it like really depressing, because he said, you know, growing up in South Africa, obviously it was like a good place to live, and he was like really proud to be South African and everything, where he says, you know, go back there now and it's just like every time he goes back it just seems like the country's like even worse than the last time. So he just finds it quite depressing, you know. That
is crazy.
Yeah, pretty sad, isn't it? Another interesting little fact for you guys. A 10-year study on female twins at the age of 55 revealed that the twin with more leg power had better cognitive aging, even with the exact same genetics. So essentially what it seems like is there is a correlation between more leg power and more grey matter in the brain. And there's been, I know there's lots of other studies that have supported research like this in the past, that like people that exercise, their brains seem to function better than people that don't exercise. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't necessarily like a clear... Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's not necessarily a clear-cut reason why that is. It might be something as simple as like, you know, if you're using your body all the time, your body's sending directions, maybe like signals to your brain saying that like, okay, well, we're obviously living like a very high octane, fast-paced life, so your brain really needs to be switched on, because your brain...
I even think with like, you know, like blood flow around the body and stuff, like if you're exercising, you're you know, like almost like your blood is like the water of your body, or like the lube of your body, like going around, like giving everything oxygen and that. And it's like, you know, you're doing all this exercise, all that that flushed blood is going to get in your brain and that as well. And I think it is like it's a whole thing, you know. Like,
I think there's lots of
thunder thighs make you wise.
Oh, baby,
as they say.
Oh, that's right, man. That's right. That's right. Yeah, but I mean, I think you're right, Drew. I think there's probably lots of different reasons why it is the case. But regardless of why, it does seem like there's direct evidence that shows that essentially more leg power equals more grey matter, better memory, and less cognitive decline.
Man.
I've
got leg day later. I gotta say, you know, every time I leave leg day, I'm always ready to do a bit of calculus.
Yeah, man. Just go. I mean,
feeling bright.
Yeah, I mean, yet another good reason to work out, isn't it? Though, really.
Absolutely.
I know there's direct evidence as well that shows that like there's a direct correlation between, say, like how many push-ups you can do, and like
how many
your life and like your what do you say?
How many ladies you can pull?
Yeah, mate. Sadly, I don't think that is the case. I think a lot of guys get into working out for that reason.
Yeah,
and there are far more bros that are impressed about the push-ups than actual chicks. You know, it's like, have you seen those memes? It's real funny. It's like why I got into the gym, and then it's like an image of like a guy looking like tanked and like with women around him like loving him, and then it's like what actually happens, and it's just like loads of guys around him like looking great, king, and like, do you take creatine? Just like loads of stuff like that.
I remember I watched a video not too long ago, and it was these 4 guys. I think they went on holiday, and they were like, right, we're going to put this to the test because they were all of like different physiques. So one was more of like a dad bod, one was like sort of skinny fat, one was just sort of like lean, but like probably had abs and like not like an athletic build, but just like a sort of lean build basically. And then another guy was just like sort of bodybuilder-ish, right?
Right.
And they were going up to all the girls and then just showing photos of like the physiques and saying like, what do you prefer? Which one do you think is the best? And I think like by a ridiculous amount, the one that was top was the sort of like lean one and the like skinny fat one.
Really?
Then it was like the dad bod, and then the last place was the guy who was like actually in good sort of athletic condition and like.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, so he was considered the least desirable. Yeah,
That's
I think
weird.
I think so many things come into it. I think the most important thing always is your personality, isn't it? You know, like how you carry, not just your personality as well. I mean, obviously the two are linked, but like how you carry yourself.
Yeah, your charisma and your confidence.
Charisma, confidence, personality. I think, the energy that you bring into a room is going to be the first thing that somebody notices the first time somebody meets you. So, say you walk into a room and you've never met a woman before, how you carry yourself is going to be the first thing,
100%.
They'll
and
probably
it's your shoes.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm freaking, mate, I've never had any luck because I could care less about shoes.
I just heard once apparently that women always notice guys' shoes. That's like one of the things
I think I've
they
heard
look
that
at.
as well.
And I was like, that's a bit weird,
I know what you mean. It is very weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is very strange. But
I think that's part of the reason why as well, like, it can work, like actually getting into shape and being more athletic, and it does work for people, is because it makes you more confident, Yeah,
and I think it has to, I think like if there were 2 guys that had like obviously fairly equal in personality, but one of them was in better shape than the other one, they'd probably eke the other one out in terms of, do you know what I mean? If they were like a girl had to choose, maybe. If they were equal in every other way. But at the end of the day, I think that if you're like a bit of a numbskull, maybe a bit of a jerk, a bit dumb, a bit of like a chip on your shoulder, maybe a bit like, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. What's the word I'm looking for as well? When you're like overcompensating,
Dullard,
you're a guy that's overcompensating. You're maybe like you're overcompensating and stuff, and a bit of a jerk, and you're in good shape. But then you've got another guy, skinny fat, but just is like a real decent guy.
And I think
it's
that
like
is sort of the natural
connotations
of those physiques, isn't it? Like if you think of someone who is like that, the first judgment that people would come to is that they are a bit full of themselves and stuff like
I think there is an element of that, I think there's like certain... I think it's like there's so many different types of people that work out as well, isn't there? And I've seen memes on this as well, and it's like, which one are you? Do you know what I mean? And it's always like, it depends. I mean, there's different types, there's like people that are really into more like quote unquote functional fitness, and then there's people that are really into cardio, and then there's people that are like full on bro as hell bodybuilders. Do you know what I mean? Like start working out, instantly get on gear, like probably quite dumb, wearing like nothing but gym brands, like you know what I mean, like nothing but like, and like not even like, and like the corniest gym brands as well. Do you know what I mean? Like all saying like alpha male on the top. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? There's a certain type of gym goer that seems like quite unintellectual, and almost like he's just overdosing on amino acids, McDonald's and steroids. Do you know what I mean? And probably just wants to get really buff so he can like go uptown and like beat up smaller dudes, and then just try and pull a bunch of dumb chicks. I think there's that stereotype in there, but then there's like lots of others as well, and there are obviously some really, really. I mean, I know because I freaking follow a lot of them like on social media and stuff. But there are some really, really intellectual people, obviously, in like in the fitness world, like lots of like sports scientists, doctors, and stuff like that. But yeah, there's that certain stereotype, isn't there? You know,
Definitely.
Probably have tiny penises. You know, but yeah, but I think, you know, at the end of the day, what were we saying about it? Yeah, if you can have better memory and more grey matter and less cognitive decline with working out, and at the same time, if there seems to be a correlation between how many push-ups you can do and like how long you'll live, then start doing push-ups, start doing your squats, and you'll be smart and you'll live long. All right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty good, isn't it? What else have I got for you guys? It seems like there's a correlation as well, which I thought was quite interesting, between spending time in forests and how supercharged your immune system is.
I like that.
There's a Japanese phrase called Shinrin Yoku, which in English just means forest bathing, and it's been shown to significantly enhance anti-cancer immunity. Multiple studies reveal that a multi-day forest trip can boost the number and activity of natural killer cells, which are known as NK cells, which are critical components in targeting tumour cells. This works by up to 50%, with elevated levels of anti-cancer proteins like perforin, granzeme, and granuslin. These immune enhancements endure for at least a week, and in some cases up to 30 days post-trip, suggesting a monthly forest visit may sustain strengthening NK function. The underlying mechanism appears to involve inhalation of tree-emitted phytoncides, which reduce stress hormones like cortisol and simultaneously amplify NK cell responses. Forest therapy thus represents a natural, scientifically supported immune intervention, one capable of supercharging the body's cancer-fighting potential. That's a really cool thing to know, isn't it?
Yeah, I think...
Oh, go on, Han.
You go ahead, Drew. You go ahead.
Can you talk us a bit more into the mic, Drew? You say bit quiet.
Oh, I'll turn it up a bit. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think it's like nature brings itself into equilibrium, and that's an amazing example of like science behind it, like actually showing that that's what it's doing, you know, like how, because I know you always feel better when you go for a walk in the forest and that, but I heard this thing as well about even the birds, even listening to the birds, like the birds will tune their song to their environment with what's going on in their environment, and you walking through loads of bird song will even do something to you and like bring you more back into balance in your body and stuff. And it's like, that's pretty cool. You're almost just inhaling in all of the balance of nature, and that's just making you a bit more balanced as well. Like, I think that's like really cool. And I've always thought that, but I've not known the science behind it. I just so that's like, seems like a cool example.
Yeah, it always seems to me like when you're walking through a forest or a wood, the air seems so much cleaner, doesn't it? Maybe it's because of the more oxygen that's going out, but it also could be because of those reasons that you're saying. It feels like you are breathing in almost liquid goodness, or not liquid, but gas goodness, I suppose.
Gassy goodness.
Yeah.
Gassy goodness. Oh man, yeah, no, definitely. I think at the end of the day, you don't really know why, do you? But you always I just feel like whenever you've like done a hike, you just feel better for it, don't you? You just feel so much better for it.
And it's that clean air when you get up high and things as well, you know, not just in forests, but like actual in big open spaces where there's not much pollution around, or you know, buildings, etc.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because it almost goes hand in hand with some of the things we've been saying about exercise as well. Because obviously, when you are, say, going for a hike, you're mixing, you know, everything that was just, say, all that science behind, you know, breathing in, you know, things like trees excrete essentially in the air, which then obviously it almost makes like cancer killing, you know, like things in your body, which is amazing. But then obviously you're mixing that with the physical activity of like hiking miles and miles, sometimes up hills and down hills and stuff like that, which obviously is exercise as well, you know. So it's like you're mixing the two, which is really, really nice, you know. And it does seem like super de-stressing, doesn't it? Super de-stressing.
It'd be interesting to see about like the sea air as well, because I always feel that like, or what it's like for people that are sailing and are like right out to sea in the middle of like nothing, because that's another part of nature that we're not around so much, but it feels different when you're breathing in sea air. Or I know that whenever I'd sleep at Trianon and stuff, and through the summer I'd just have really good sleep because it was right next to the sea and stuff, you know.
It's really funny. Me and Emma always laugh because like you can guarantee if you ever like speak to Em's grandparents when you've been like to the seaside or anything like that, or you've been speaking to them and they've been to the seaside, and like they ask how you've slept or something, if you say good, they're like, it's not sea air.
Yeah,
Sierra,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
but you know how like some people have like certain almost like phrases. That's like one of their phrases. It's not Sierra.
It's that Sierra. It's doing it.
I wonder what that's all about, though. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause it does seem to be a thing. But it's just something about that nice salty air, that nice sea salty air.
Like I wonder if that's got something in it that's kind of helping you just sleep a bit better.
Isn't it weird in a way, like how people just seem to like love the sea when you bear in mind that obviously like as mammals that evolved on land. Actually, the sea's quite dangerous.
I love the sea. Like I've definitely got a call to the ocean, man. Yeah. Like if I had an opportunity to just get on a boat and like sail to a country, I'd be well up for it. You know.
Yeah. I love swimming in the sea. Yeah, I do love swimming in the sea. But as I said, like I think that. But as you said, it's like it almost makes you wonder why, because it doesn't really seem to make sense. Like forests make sense. You know, we almost like as apes. We evolved in forests
and even lakes because you can bathe in them and stuff, and it's like you can use it for drinking water. You can't really do that in the sea. You get all salty and it makes your hair all weird and like you know it's good for your skin, but like it's a bit. But at the same time,
if you do it too much, it probably like dries out your skin. And get a bit like flaky and that. Which isn't too good. Like the salt will dry you out, won't it? You know,
it's something we've always had. Like the sea is so hypnotic, and you hear these old like pirates' tales of sirens like cooling people and beckoning them to join into the water and then you know to their demise. It's interesting that it seems we've always been like interested in it. It almost makes you wonder if it's a little bit, you know, Lovecraftian, you know, a little bit Cthulhu.
What Cthulhu's there calling you
dragging you in, yeah.
Because it doesn't really make sense, does it? Like as I said, you're like you know, you can drown in the sea. Even like strong swimmers sometimes get caught in like rip currents and drown.
It's a dangerous place.
Becky and Tom, my you know, like Em's sister and her boyfriend Tom, they almost drowned in a rip current in Cornwall.
Really?
And Tom, and like they're both good swimmers, but especially Tom is like a really, really good swimmer. But even so, they nearly died. And Becky like openly says she's like no joke. She's like 100% she would have died if it wasn't for Tom, because Tom basically like at the last minute like drew her up. But she said that she was basically like passing out under the water, and she was panicking as hell. You know, she was getting to the point where she was like inhaling water because like you know you're trying to come up, but you just can't. Yeah. She's like struggling with every ounce of might in her body.
Savage.
And then right at the last minute, as she felt like she was like blacking out, he managed to like get her and pull her up. But he said that he was like struggling with every bit of his might as well. And I've swam with Tom a lot, like in the sea and on holiday and stuff. And he is a really good swimmer, you know. He's really competent, you know. Completely happy, like diving 20 foot to the bottom of the sea and stuff, you know, looking at shells and hold his breath for a long time. Fast swimmer, competent swimmer.
It's a sketchy thing, man. I remember being on holiday not too long ago, and not that I was ever, you know, at risk of death at all. But even just swimming out, like on a nice island place like Greece or Italy, you start swimming back and you think it's a lot harder to get back in than it is to get out there. You know, if the tide switches on you, it is sketchy.
Yeah, and you see that in a lot of beaches. I don't think I've ever actually seen them on beaches in the UK. Maybe it's just because people don't swim in the sea as much in the UK, whereas they do like loads in Mediterranean countries. But in countries like Spain and Italy, if it starts getting too choppy, there are usually like beach lifeguards that straight away start blowing their whistles and they're like, "You got to come out of the water, like you got to come in." I've had that happen to me, like me and people like several times when I've been on a holiday. Like I think when I was in Sicily last year, and when I was in Calabona in Spain as well, like you know, a few years ago as well. So, you know, that's happened, but it's weird because you don't really feel like at the time like it's anything's, because it creeps up on you like it's being that crazy. And I remember both times at first I was like, why is the lifeguard like blowing the whistle at me, almost like getting aggy with me, like almost like what am I doing wrong? And then you're like, oh no, he's just asking everyone to get out of the water. And it's like, oh
yeah,
and
I've seen the flags in the UK where you get the red and yellow ones to you got to stay between that because that's like the parts of the rip, and then or you know beyond it it's more like rip and stuff, and then they put the red flag out when you can't go in the sea because it's too crazy. But
mad.
I think it's not even just the water as well. Like, there's so many animals in the sea that could kill you. Like,
I was going to go on to that,
Like, I'm going to Australia soon.
Oh, mate.
And I love going in the sea. I love swimming. I'm going to have to stop myself, like, a lot of the time. Because you go there, there's blue-ringed octopus, there's, you know, stingray, there's saltwater crocodiles, there's great white sharks, tiger sharks.
Active man-eaters as well, saltwater crocodiles.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And not just that, but think about they've got savage jellyfish as well.
I think in a way it's almost what makes us human, though, isn't it? That curiosity and that need to like go out off onto the horizon, discover what's there.
Explore.
That's almost what makes us human.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's like, what is it? There's a really good saying, and it's like, what is it? It's like
pirate's life for me.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
But it's like, obviously, you can apply it to loads of different things. This isn't the exact quote, but it's like, a life of comfort leads to unhappiness or something like that, and a lifetime of struggle leads to contentment, or so. I mean, it's something like that. But it's like, basically, if you never ever push your boundaries and you always stay completely within your comfort zone in like every area of life, you're probably going to feel very unsatisfied and feel probably quite lost. Whereas it's always like the people that are just pushing boundaries, and that could just be like just doing something a bit dangerous, doing something that's a bit physically dangerous, but it's almost like makes you feel good. There's an adrenaline.
Yeah, like
rush
I
to
saw
it,
that. I saw this like he was over 60, looked like this real old guy, and he was just 300 feet up a rock cliff, like with no rope or anything, barefoot, just climbing this rock barefoot, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and he's like, it makes me feel alive, makes me feel free, and I'm like, you're gonna be dead soon.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But it's like, you can see for those people, they'd like rather do it and risk death than just not do it, which to some people seems crazy. I think the worst one for me, the one that I'm really not on board with, that I would just be like, no, 100% screw that, is when you see all those like mad cavers that go through, like squeeze through the tiniest gaps.
I saw a video of that recently.
For me, just even watching that makes me feel funny. I don't like it. I'm like, nah, it's not for me. The idea of like being in this like super claustrophobic, pitch black area, whereas like say if the batteries on your torch go or something, that's it. You are in pitch black, really far under the ground. Could be like 5 foot, could be 10 foot, could be 30 foot under the ground, whatever. Maybe sometimes even more. No chance of you getting out. And if you get stuck, that's just it. Do you know what I mean? There's no like mad, let's get somebody and they'll rescue you. There have literally been cases, haven't there, where people have gotten stuck.
The Nutty Putty Cave.
Is that the one where
the guy where he ended up upside down and he's still down there now? Yeah,
that's it. They don't even recover the bodies. They're just down there. It's like your grave. You just created your own grave.
It's definitely the most horrible, like, to imagine. But at the same time, I can remember in year 6 camp, for example, you're off going caving and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, obviously it's very safe. But I mean, it's safe until it isn't. The people that went in the Nutty Putty Cave, for example, I'm pretty sure that was meant to be a really beginner cave diving experience, and they just took a wrong turn.
Mate, see, I hate that. See, we went on a cave in, we went to Osmington Bay in, I can't remember if it was year 5 or year 6. Me and Josh went, and along with like a lot of other kids from our class. And like, I hated the cave in then. Because I remember I loved everything else. I loved the climbing. I loved the abseiling. Like, a lot of people don't like abseiling, do they? And stuff.
Yeah, I like abseiling.
Like, they don't like the heights and stuff. But like, I freaking love abseiling. I love climbing. We did some quad biking. Freaking loved that. Yeah, boy. But yeah, the cave in, I hated it. And they had it. I think they had it in sort of like age ranges. And I think I was like literally in year 6. I was like the biggest kid in my class, both in terms of like height and in terms of fat. I was just like a big porky lad when I was in year 6. Do you know what I mean? I was like a freaking dairy farmer that drank all the milk. And I just remember, I think it was like, it was like a 8 to 12 or something, like that was the age range of the things. But I mean, I was maxing out capacity, and I remember thinking, it's all right for like freaking Luke Palmer, because he was like half my freaking girth, and like he was like going it, and he'd be like wriggling through, and he was fine. But man, when I started to panic a little bit, because if I would breathe out, I could feel like where every part of me was pushing against the rocks. Yeah, and mate, I freaking hated it. I hated it. Like, you couldn't get me out of there sooner. There was even like little panics in my head. I was like, man, I might just be freaking down here forever. And then when I finally got out, I was like, I am not freaking going back in that thing. Like, they'd have to physically freaking stuff me in it and like shut the hole afterwards to get me in it. I'd be kicking and screaming, you know.
Did I tell you about the little cave that we went through when I went to Split? Like, was that this year?
What, in Croatia?
Yeah, no, last year.
I think you might have done.
Yeah, it was really interesting, because it was like one where you went out on a boat, and the bluest waters, lovely day, and then you can choose to swim through this cave, which a lot of people do, don't get me wrong, pretty safe, but at the same time I was thinking to myself after doing it, pretty sketchy actually, man. You have to dive under the water to get through this little like hole in the rocks that takes you through to the next part of the cave. But when we went in, I don't know if the tide was rising but it was choppy in there, is essentially what I'm trying to say. And there was a lot of people in there, and there was a guy at the front who was freaking out, and he was going, I can't do it. So he went down, and someone went under, and don't get me wrong, you got to like swim through for a little bit, and you can't really see anything, so it's like pretty sketchy. And the guy came back. So someone else was going in to go through this little hole, right? And there was someone coming the other way. So they met in the middle. And imagine then you're like underneath this rock, just under the water.
That's horrible.
Can't really see anything. And you're like, something's blocking this path. I can't go that way. I'm going to have to go back. The people behind him are waiting to go. That's pretty sketchy, man. And
horrible.
like once you get through to the other side, then you had to like climb this rock face to get out. And even that was a bit dodgy. But yeah, I don't know. It's amazing that you don't hear more injuries and like... from stuff like that, the people going on holiday and climbing all these caves.
I've heard some horrible
balls.
ones about more like the underwater caves as well, because obviously the ones we were talking about before are more like, not underwater caves. But yeah, I can't remember if it was like in Spain or something like that, but it was like, like 3 friends. And yeah, they just were like going on what they thought was like, it wasn't. The thing is, I don't think the cave itself was considered like a really like you had to be some expert caver, but there were certain safety protocols that you should take to make it safe. And where they didn't really know what they were doing, they just essentially didn't do them. And one thing they really apparently didn't take into account was the type of sediment at the bottom of the sea in the cave they're going in. Once it's kicked up, apparently it takes like 24 hours to settle again. So if you're like kicking up, even just the act of swimming, you're like kicking up the sediment, and then it makes it like you can't see underwater, and they basically got lost. And obviously you've only got a certain amount of oxygen in your tank. I think one of them ended up dying in there. The other one managed to find like a weird little like air bubble pool, but because it was like cut off from obviously the rest of the world, there was only something like 8 hours of oxygen in there, and he was in there, and then just like he basically breathed in all the oxygen until there was no oxygen left. I think there was 2 of them at that point, and then one of them just like passed out and died in there, and he was just like holding on to like a stalagmite that was like sticking out in this cave with like just holding his mate that was dead, and then finally realised that there was like no point holding his mate anymore because he was already dead, so we just let him go and let him sink. And then I can't remember like what happened to that guy, but I think he eventually died as well. And then that's like eventually they were all of their bodies were like found, but they were said like they didn't do it correctly, basically. But just a really like harrowing tale. Do you know what I mean? Like what started off, it was like apparently it was like a really willy-nilly like last minute decision. Like they were on holiday, and over breakfast they were just like, should we just randomly do some cave diving today? And like, yeah, let's do it. There's this place around the corner apparently. And like unknowingly for them, that like last minute willy-nilly decision caused their like last ever day on Earth.
Did you ever hear about that one underwater where people got sucked into a tube?
No, but that sounds
horrible.
horrible.
This?
That sounds absolutely
It was
horrible.
on some sort of work thing. I don't even know exactly what they were doing, but there was all these workers that got sucked into this tube, and then they were just like at the bottom of the ocean bed in this tube together. And I think only one guy managed to get out. He had to like leave all his oxygen and stuff behind, and then like climb back up the tube or whatever and alert people. But by the time they got to the bottom, like people came to rescue, and they were banging on the tube, and I think there was just like no response. Like they were banging where they knew the people were, and they just must have been dead in there. Same thing, just ran out of oxygen.
That is absolutely
insane,
brutal, man. Screw that. Yeah, so I mean, I guess going back to our original thing, it's like a bit weird, isn't it? Really, why like humans are so like love the sea so much, you know? Because you said if it's not like mad caves that you can die in or get stuck in or whatever, you've got just like, the drowning, the riptides, then you've got all these crazy creatures. I think to me as well, by far the most terrifying planets the most terrifying animals on the planet live in the sea. Because I think even oh man, yeah, there's just something about them I feel like is that so alien and everything. It just freaked me out. It just freaked me out. Like as much as like I completely like acknowledge how brutal and horrible it would be to be killed by like a tiger or a bear, and I'm not like one of those. Have you ever heard those statistics that like apparently there's like a ridiculously high amount of Americans that reckon they'd be able to like beat a bear in a fight? I'm under no illusions. Like I do, yeah, I know that like obviously there'd be nothing you could do if you didn't have like a good weapon on you. But like I don't know, as much as it would suck, I don't think I'd get the same visceral fear as if I was like fricking attacked by like a great white shark or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think the two worst things are insects and stuff underwater, man.
Yeah.
Because there's just something a bit more sinister about it. I don't really know why.
It's quite a common phobia, isn't it? That one of just like a fear of large bodies of water. Can you remember the name of it? It's like quite a common fear. But like the thing is, I love sea swimming, but I wouldn't like to swim in the middle of the ocean. Are you guys at all like that, or would you not care?
I think if I was in the middle of an ocean on a boat and like it wasn't super choppy, I would like jump off and have a bit of a swim and then get back on the boat. But it's like, you know, the more I think about it, the more I wouldn't. Because if I let my imagination wander too much for me, you know, like then I'd be like, nah.
I think I'd be fine with it until I wasn't. I'd be fine with it, like jumping in, and then I think I'd look around and be like, anything could be here, and I'd sketch out a little bit.
You see those videos as well, don't you, of people doing that, and then like literally almost like instantaneously a shark comes out of nowhere, and they're like, get back on the boat, get back on the boat, and there's like a freaking like 14-foot tiger shark just like tanking it towards the people, and sometimes wasn't there like one a year or two ago of like a guy in the Navy. And he jumped off the Navy ship, and then he just like disappeared. But like a couple of people said they saw like they didn't actually see him get taken under.
I think it was on like a cruise ship.
Yeah, it was a cruise ship.
I think so because there was a video of it.
Some people saw a tiger shark like near him like just before he like disappeared.
He just like disappeared into the water at night,
and he's just never seen again. And he was like in the middle of the frickin' ocean, so his body was never found or recovered or anything. Like how you're not going to find it, are you?
No.
It's not like it's like on the beach and it's just going to like wash up on the shore a couple of days later.
That must be a weird feeling being so far out, like just wherever you look around you, there's no land.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No, that's very weird. Like the only time I've ever experienced anything like that is like when you're flying and you're almost you're over the sea or something and you can't see anything around you. But but it's so weird like how people or like back in the day or Navy people or sailors they would feel more comfortable out at sea than on land, and that's just such a weird concept for me. Like like the sea's always calling me back, you know, got to get out, back on the boat, go back on the ship and stuff. More in like years gone by. I can't imagine it's such a big thing now. But you know, that was a thing, or that's the way it's portrayed in like in dramas.
So have neither of you ever been on like a
I've never been on a cruise or anything like that. Like
what about like a ferry? Have you been on a ferry?
I've been on a ferry.
Yeah,
I've been on a ferry to France.
Yeah, so there must have been a small period of time where obviously you were very far away from land both ways.
Yeah, I didn't feel weird with that. I just get seasick like real bad. So and I used to get travel sick in the car even, and I think I've grown out of it now. But when I was younger, but like oh god, I'd be on a ferry and I'd have to be like lying down on the sofa like on the thing,
really,
like gonna puke up and stuff.
Yeah, I have been on a cruise ship once, and I have to say, it didn't really bother me at the time. I think there's so many distractions on a cruise ship. Yeah, you're never really bored.
Feels like you're on your own little island.
But one thing I didn't like is my room was like underwater essentially.
Whoa!
So
crazy.
You know, like a little porthole window that you see in ships. Like in my room, that was underwater. And like,
did you ever see anything out of it? Could you
like as you can imagine, my imagination was running rampant, and you still did have some curtains.
Just this eye like comes up to the side of the ship.
Mate, that's what was immediately what I was thinking. Like it did have curtains, which was like comforting. And if you think about it, the only reason that they had that curtain must have been because it's a common thing amongst people that they feel uncomfortable with stuff like that. Because it's not like, because you're worried about someone seeing you changing. I mean, like, what, do you know what I mean? It's like some random person's like swimming like in the water, like, watching you, like. But yeah, I remember just
like an aquarium for fish, like we have an aquarium.
Yeah, it's like going to the zoo. It's like watching a chimp in a zoo.
Yeah,
but just going up to the window, like, look at that weird little ape in there, and you're just there like. On the bed with your balls out, like but I remember that made me feel a bit weird. Like I just didn't really like that fact. I was like, I'm sleeping like essentially underwater every night, you know?
Do you know what I think part of the fascination of the ocean and the sea is, and the call to it perhaps? I think we're so creative and our imagination runs so wild that the sea is almost like its own blank canvas that we can just throw our imagination onto, and anything could be under there, and that's almost what makes it so mystical and so like, whoa, I wonder what adventures are going on down there, and like what is over the horizon and all these things. Your immediate reality around you, like I know right now in front of me there's a computer screen, I know, but when you're looking at the sea, you've got no clue what's under there. I think that's almost part of the wonder.
If you look at like ancient maps, even ones that are like actually really accurate and stuff geographically, in pretty much every single one, there's loads of on the seas. There's like random different depictions of like different sea monsters, isn't there? There'll be like like every single one. There's like, oh yeah, be careful when you're on a ship between Crete and somewhere, because there's like a massive sea serpent there that's known to just like devour ships, and then there'll be like some kraken there and some other weird sea beast here, and it's like they had all these tales of like mad sea monsters that it would seem to like come out of the ocean and just like destroy vessels and stuff.
It's crazy.
Makes you wonder if it was like there was like any truth to it or not.
Do you remember like in I don't know if it was Vikings or it was a show like Vikings, and there was a depiction of like the Kraken in it and there was a little a little kid that died on the show. Ring a bell. And I thought they did it really well, because it was like that thing you're saying about the imagination, like she was like hallucinating, because they were all like fighting to keep the boat like on thing and that, and it was all crazy, but this kid was just like she'd been told this story about the Kraken and stuff, and she was just sitting there watching everything that was going on, and then she saw the Kraken like coming with the waves and stuff, and then the next minute she was gone, and I was like, whoa, that was a really cool depiction, because she actually died, and it was like showing like what was going on in her head at the time and stuff, and I was like, that's what you'd imagine if you're in the middle of a crazy storm like that,
it is, and especially like on a voyage like that back in those days, where your vessel hasn't even got like cover. You're all just out in the open.
Yeah.
You're in a storm. Like you're probably going to be malnourished after a certain amount of days. You're going to be thirsty as hell, malnourished, sleep deprived. Then you've got all the elements and all the stress of that, and like the amount of ships that used to just like sink in those days.
Thor's cracking his hammer in the skies above.
Yeah, Thor's cracking one off. Yeah, with cracking. And then it's like, you can see why you would like hallucinate and stuff. And when I say as well, like I said before, like makes you wonder if there's any truth to it. Obviously, I'm not necessarily saying, is there actually like quote unquote monsters? But it makes you wonder, obviously, because there are loads of mental things in the sea. Like,
did they see something?
Was it actually just like random attacks or something? From whether it was like large great white sharks, maybe like a whale like breached and like destroyed, and like the whale didn't even maybe mean to do it. That you hear every now and again. There was a story, wasn't there, several months ago, about how like was it like a humpback whale? It was a large type of baleen whale anyway, like accidentally like swallowed a man, and then like it spat him out again straight away. But you can imagine if that happened 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, there'd be this mad tale about how this giant sea beast like swallowed a man, and then he managed somehow to get out before the beast like retreated into the murky depths. Do you know what I mean? It'd be like, oh my god! It wouldn't be like, oh, of course we know that baleen whales don't actually eat people, so as soon as it realised it accidentally swallowed a man, it spat him back out again. In those days, it would have been this like crazy tale. Or you see sometimes, don't you, videos of like whales breaching, and they don't realise there's like a yacht there, and then they'll like land on the yacht and just smash it in half and that. Cool. But I think if that happened to a ship back in the day, that would be like long before like radios and SOS and all that, and like just calling another ship to come and save you while you're bobbing along. That would just be like, that'd be the end of you, wouldn't it?
Well, we know of like orcas now that attack ships and break the propellers so they can't move and stuff like that. I mean, who's to say that there weren't animals out there that were intelligent enough to break down ships back then? Yeah.
Makes you wonder as well, doesn't it, if like tales of the Kraken were like were giant squid or colossal squid?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Imagine how scary it would be, right, if you didn't know what a giant squid or a colossal squid was.
Yeah,
and you were in like a fairly modest-sized ship, and you saw one, and it was like longer than your frickin' boat. They have the largest eyes of any animal on the planet, don't they? Their eyes are like,
I didn't know that.
Oh mate, their eyes are like this frickin' big. And just imagine how even creepy the eyes would look, just these massive eyes, and then they've got these ridiculous long tentacles, and then in the middle of the tentacles they've got this massive frickin' beak. That like can just like I can't remember the crushing strength of their beaks, but it's like something mad. It's like almost like a you know what I mean? It's like one of those things that like just like you put stuff into it and it like crushes them and stuff like that, like you see in like industrial plants and that. It's just like this madly strong beak that can just crunch up bone and whatever else. It's quite scary, really.
Oh man, 100%. It's terrifying. It would terrify you now. I remember even being on a boat once and seeing a couple of hammerhead sharks like swimming alongside the boat, and even that was a little bit sketchy because they look like weird animals and they swim like proper like this, through the water. That was sketchy enough.
Mate, people have been killed and eaten by hammerheads as well. Especially there's several different species of hammerhead shark. The biggest of which is called the great hammerhead. And mate, they're like, some of them get like 20 foot long. And I think as well, I don't think 20 foot long sounds as big when you say 20 foot as I think it would be in reality.
Yes, yeah.
Because when you think of like a 6 foot man, it's like a pretty big man. And then think that's over 3 times in length that. And then it's not just that, it's the girth that comes with like a 20 foot long animal tends to usually be like a submarine in terms of width. Do you know what I mean? They're really big. Like I've heard that from people that say everything about whether it's like large anacondas and pythons, like large snakes or large crocodiles or large sharks. They say like it's not just the length. For every like couple of feet longer an animal like that grows, they grow like a certain amount wider as well. And then by the time you get to ones that are like 20 foot long, they are like colossally wide and girthy. So it's like seeing a freaking like submarine in the ocean, but a submarine with like teeth. And it's like, that's quite sketchy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's quite like a sketchy thought.
100%.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think as well, say like back in the day, because it's like a fact, isn't it? That say when like Jaws came out, Jaws like sketched people out so much and created such like a stir amongst just people around the world that in all like the countries, like places like California in the United States and places like South Africa and Australia, in all the places where there were great whites, like loads of fishermen just started going out and like killing all the biggest ones. And a lot of reasons they were doing it was because it was so popular. They were almost like getting like applauded for it, and they would like even like get money for it and stuff. So what they obviously did was they killed the biggest ones, and the populations are still like recovering to this day because obviously after a while they killed so many that it became protected species. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, I expect, like, say, like a couple of 100 years ago, in general, great white sharks were probably bigger because the biggest ones have all been targeted and killed out. And it's like that natural selection thing, isn't it? If you take out all the biggest ones, well, then the biggest ones aren't around to pass on their large genes anymore. It'd be like if you just killed like every man over 6 foot. Eventually, you'd have like the humans in general would just be shorter, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have the like large gene pool anymore to create large people, so everyone would just be small. And that's pretty much what's happened with sharks. And even so, they still look sketchy as hell now. But like, I mean, you do hear tales, don't you? Like, you hear like tales from old fishermen saying like, "Oh yeah, I've seen 25-foot great whites and that. Don't see them anymore, but back in my day, you did," and stuff like that. And it's like, when you think, did they grow bigger and like more sketchy back in those days? I can't remember if it's like in Mexico or something. I think it is in Mexico. There's like fishermen in Mexico and like people that swear. I think they call it like the black demon or something like that. It's like in Mexican though they've got like a name for it in Mexican, but apparently it's like translates to like the black demon. And they swear down that there's like a freaking like great white shark.
Have a little search.
That's like way bigger than like that's like over 30 foot long. And like loads of Mexicans and Mexican fishermen claim to have seen it. And I swear they call it like the black demon or something like that. And it's like they claim that it like lives in like waters around Mexico. Yeah, just type in something like
Yeah, man. The black demon is a legendary creature, a massive black shark said to inhabit the Gulf of California near Baja California, Mexico. It's a popular subject in local folklore, with stories passed down through generations of fishermen. Some believe it's an unusually large great white shark, while others speculate it could even be a new species or even a surviving megalodon.
Megalodon? I definitely don't think it's a megalodon. I think it would be more likely that would be a new species than a megalodon. They
have places like Megalodon's graveyard and stuff, don't they, where they reckon like a bunch went to die. I always thought that was quite interesting. Have you ever heard of that?
No, to be honest, I haven't heard of that. But I know that they do know that, say, like megalodon were like relatively coastal animals. So like a lot of people that like that want to believe that megalodons are still alive, they're like, the ocean's such a massive place, man. Like if they're even a creature the size of a megalodon could hide in the ocean. But it's like, yeah, but we know from archaeological studies and stuff that like they were relatively coastal, like similar to like a lot of sharks today. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of the things they like to hunt are relatively coastal. Whether it's like seals and things like that, like whales, dolphins. So like if they were alive today, you know, if they were relatively coastal, then people would see them, because you'd see something like freaking the size of a whale.
Yeah.
You would see it somewhere near the coast at some point, wouldn't you?
It almost makes sense to me that if there was going to be like another crazy thing, it would almost be like where like sperm whales and giant squid and stuff like that are, because they always have like legendary battles between each other, don't they?
Yeah.
And that
That's
almost
more
seems like
like
if you were going to
evolution,
invite like a new massive creature that we don't know of, it would make sense to me that it'd be around them and they would all like fight each other. You know what I mean? Because
that'd be cool.
big animals, unless they're like a blue whale or something like that, they need to eat big prey.
They think that's one of the reasons why Megalodon did go extinct as well.
Yeah.
They think that just basically like there were several like reasons why, but one of them was like they couldn't have enough food anymore to sustain like their mass, essentially. So that's one of the reasons they went extinct. But it's cool because you were saying obviously about like, you know, sperm whales, giant squid and stuff. Obviously it would have been like that back in the day, because when the Megalodon was around, so was Leviathan melville, like the ancestral sperm whale.
So cool.
So like there would, and there's like, it's like a fact that they used to do battle and stuff. That would have been insane to watch, wouldn't it? I wish almost we had like, you know, if you could like go back in time, but be in like almost like an invulnerable submarine, then I would love to see like a battle between a Leviathan melville and a Megalodon. Almost like just colossal beasts.
Yeah.
With just these massive teeth, just going at it.
That was almost my favourite thing of like the Jurassic World movie, almost like the new redo of the Jurassic Park movies. In the theme park, they had like this massive water creature. I don't even know what it was supposed to be. A mosasaur.
Mosasaur, yeah.
Insane. That's like, if I was to go to a place like that, I think I would be more intrigued with an animal like that than I would even like a T-Rex, you know?
They definitely like blew out of proportion the size of it.
Yeah.
I think in Jurassic World they made out it was bigger than it actually was, but they were obviously still insanely massive in real life. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you.
Do you rate that movie? Cool. I haven't seen that one yet.
Which one?
Oh, is there more than one?
Are you on about the super new one? There's one that's literally coming out in like a couple of weeks, isn't there, with Scarlett Johansson?
Oh, right.
I'll definitely go to cinema.
I've only seen the original one.
Oh, what, the very first Jurassic Park? I think they're all worth a watch. I think they're all worth a watch to us.
I remember as a kid it really captured my imagination, but I don't know if it would do the same as now how old I am. I'm not sure.
I remember I loved the original Jurassic Park when I watched that when I was a kid. But I remember when I watched it, I remember the Velociraptors, which are actually technically Deinonychus in the first one, freaked me out. The way that they're depicted in the first one, I remember it would like freak me out to go to the kitchen on my own to get a drink out of the fridge. You know, and like you have like irrational fears when you're a little kid and you think there's going to be a freaking velociraptor in your freaking kitchen. Yeah. So like obviously like that's not going to happen.
That was a well good scene, that was.
Oh man, it was that whole scene at the end where, you know, it's like it somehow opens the door to like that kitchen and stuff, and like goes in and it's like chasing the kids around and stuff. And I remember that. Like they did a really good job of like portraying the velociraptors as like sketchy in that movie.
Jurassic Park was the reason that we have CGI now, isn't it?
Yeah, they invented like, because they were going to use stop motion for Jurassic Park, and then they just didn't think it looked quite right. And then apparently the guy that was like in charge of the special effects basically like invented the way that CGI is done today, like for Jurassic Park.
Crazy.
So like that was the first time anybody saw like the CGI dinosaurs in that at the time was like completely revolutionary. I can't remember what year Jurassic Park came out.
It was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, I want to say it was like 93, 94 or 95. But either way, it was like, completely revolutionary. A bit in the same way like Star Wars was completely revolutionary in like, I think 79 was when A New Hope came out. And I remember, like, for example, my parents went to see that in the cinema when A New Hope first came out, and they said that they left the cinema like, what the hell have we just watched? Because like there'd never been a sci-fi movie like Star Wars before. You got to bear in mind, like 1979. It's a long time ago now. And there's like space battles and like the Death Star exploding and, you know, all these like lasers and like lightsaber battles and stuff. And like, by today's standards, A New Hope seems like modest, but you got to bear in mind that at the time, you'd never seen anything like that in your life. I'm super chuffed, actually. I've got an EV into Star Wars. Funnily enough, we've just finished watching A New Hope yesterday, and I was so chuffed because when like that whole scene at the end, spoilers, when like, you know, Luke finally destroys the Death Star because Han comes back and And then there's a whole scene where they're getting the medals come on, and obviously then the titles come out, like the credits. And he was like, "Oh, is it over?" And she was like, "Proper." Actually, and I was like, "Yeah, this movie is, but there's like a load more movies." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "And the movie after this is even better than the one we've just watched." She was like, and I was like, "Do you want to start watching? Do you want to watch the first half an hour of Empire Strikes Back with me tomorrow?" Because we've been sort of watching like half-hour segments. Obviously just because you can't stay up too late, and by the time I'm back from work and everything. And B, I think it's good to like, you know what I mean? I don't want to like. I think it's for kids as well. It's quite a thing to sit. Yeah, for like to sit down for 2 hours and watch this full-on in-depth sci-fi movie. It's like better to break it up into almost like episodes. Yeah. So I almost like already said to Emma yesterday, because she was like, right, she was like, she can't watch too much Star Wars in one go, and I was like, right, I'm going to turn it off with Empire Strikes Back after the Battle of Hoth. So like that's going to be almost like episode 1, because it starts, doesn't it, with them like on Hoth, the ice planet, and then
she's going to love Yoda.
Mate, she's gonna look, because her favorite character. I asked her what her favorite character was in the first one. She said Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Nice.
She was like, I can't remember if she actually said Obi-Wan, but she'd refer to him as like the wizard. She was like the wizard. Right,
cool.
But she does know his name's Obi-Wan Kenobi. But she really likes Princess Leia. I think because she's a little girl and she's just one of those like typical girl things. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a princess. I like Princess Leia. Especially because she was like, who is she in that? And I was like, oh, she's like basically the leader of the good guys. She's the leader of the rebellion. She's like, she's in charge. And I was like, yeah, it's Princess Leia's in charge. And she was like, that's cool. And then she loved the fact that, you know, when like Darth Vader like sort of like strikes down Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he kind of doesn't, because Obi-Wan just like disappears and just becomes one with the Force. So it's a bit of an anticlimactic victory, isn't it, for Darth Vader, because he's not even aware of that Force ability. At that point, the Jedi, like Obi-Wan, has like learnt from Qui-Gon in the afterlife to essentially become like almost like immortal. So as soon as you physically die, you just become one with the Force, and then you're like living in the Force everywhere in the universe, and at any point you want, you can just come back as a Force ghost anyway. Whereas obviously it wasn't like that. Like Darth Vader doesn't know about that Force ability, and only light side users have that ability. So he's used to just like cutting people out in half and that. You can see he's like a bit confused, isn't he? Because he's like stamping on the robes of like Obi-Wan. He's a bit confused. But yeah, she loved Obi-Wan, and I was like, yeah, in the second one, there's a wizard that's even stronger than Obi-Wan, and he was Obi-Wan's master when Obi-Wan was younger, and she was like, So yeah, she's going to love Yoda. Yeah, especially because he's little and green and got big ears
and funny.
Yeah.
So I forget how funny he is in that second movie.
Yeah, like
such a little troll.
He's so cheeky, isn't he? He's like, he's like just like testing Luke. He's like testing Luke's patience by just basically trying to irritate him, isn't he? Yeah, no, it's great. But I thought, yeah, tonight we're going to watch. When I get back, going to watch up until the end of the Battle of Hoth. But she's going to love that, because you've got that whole scene at the beginning with like where, you know, Luke gets you know, like taken by the Wampa beast, and then he like cuts its arm off and then escapes. And then you've got the whole big battle, you know, with the AT-ATs, the all-terrain vehicles and that.
Man, I might have to go back and rewatch Star Wars. It's getting me the Star Wars fever.
Mate,
I've never done it. It's got the big twist come in.
I know. Yeah, because at the moment, obviously,
that's going to be so. You should record a reaction,
mate. I might do, because obviously at the moment she's like, she thinks Darth Vader's like a little bit scary, but obviously as well she sees Darth Vader as like the big bad guy, because obviously in The New Hope you don't really get introduced to Palpatine at all or anything like that. So the way I sort of tried to, obviously you've got to explain things to kids and a little bit different than how you would do to another adult. So obviously just in ways that she would understand, I just said that like Obi-Wan was essentially like a really powerful good wizard, and Darth Vader was like an evil sorcerer. That's what I said, and I said they're about as strong as each other, but you know they're like different. But because obviously you don't want to be too gloomy and doomy with kids as well, I was like, you know, I did say to her before the battle between Darth Vader and everyone, I was like, even if Darth Vader wins, he can't actually really kill Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan's just like, he's so powerful, he'll just become like one with the universe and stuff. And she was like, oh, okay. But yeah, she's definitely going to be like, whoa, because obviously the whole story with like Luke Skywalker, and you know, she did really like Luke Skywalker, and obviously she was tense in the Battle of Yavin. It's Battle of Yavin, isn't it? Battle of Yavin 4. Man, she was tense during that space battle, and I really appreciated it as well, because like obviously when I watch like those space battles nowadays, whether it's just because I know the outcome or just because it doesn't, kids get so hyped about stuff. I love it. Everything's so amazing and like exciting to them. But like honestly, every single time there'd be like, you know, like originally at the Battle of Yavin, it's like Gold Squadron do their run, but then Darth Vader decides to join the fight on his like state-of-the-art TIE fighter, and then he basically just destroys all of Gold Squadron. So then Red Squadron have to go in, and then basically the other 2 pilots that are with Luke in the run get destroyed. And then he was like, "Is Darth Vader gonna get Luke? He's gonna get Luke. And she was literally like, I can't watch. She was getting so stressed, and I was like, it's all right. And then obviously there's that bit where like Darth Vader is just about to shoot down Luke, and then Han comes back. It's like, did you? And oh mate, she was like, honestly, she was like, yes, like freaking like marking out. And then they like destroy the Death Star and that. She was like so happy.
I'll be curious to know like how she takes the Disney ones.
Yeah,
the newer ones, because obviously they're made. They seem to be made more for kids than like anyone our age, and that was almost a big like part of the controversy behind it, and how like untrue to the originals it actually was. But it'll be curious to see just how much she enjoys them compared to the ones that we think are better.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think people do kids a little bit of a disservice. So I think people expect that kids will just like whatever has the most like flashing lights in and stuff. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think especially with girls. I think with boys, yeah, you could make an argument that like just basically the more epic lightsaber battles are in it, the more boys are going to be like, that's dope, because that's just what boys are like. Do you know what I mean? That's what we're all like that. You know, like you watch whether it's Game of Thrones, Vikings, Star Wars. The battles are like the almost like some the peak entertainment.
I'm definitely a little bit still like that. Like I remember watching that third new Disney movie, and I left and was like, "Whoa, Palpatine was cool." and then I sort of thought about it after, and was like, "That was a really bad movie."
It was a bit lame, yeah. Whereas I think like kids in general, but I think especially girls, I think they will probably appreciate a better storyline a bit more. Like as much as they enjoy the action, like I could tell Evie was getting really into like the dynamics of like the story and like the relationships between different people and that, which I think is a bit more of a girl trait. You know, like she enjoyed the battles, but I think, you know, whereas, so I don't know, I reckon that maybe she would actually not like the new ones as much.
Yeah, I'm very curious to know, man.
Because I think, you know, there's so many things that you can just put on for kids anyway that are just like pew pew pew, bright lights, pew pew pew. Do you know what I mean? I think, you know, is a kid even going to differentiate that between any other thing that just does that in their mind? Whereas like Star Wars in itself is a very unique story, but you almost need those original ones to almost even like appreciate the whole storyline and the lore of it. You know?
She's going to be wanting a lightsaber for Christmas, man.
Mate,
you're going to have a full-on lightsaber duel.
I would definitely bend. Definitely, yeah. I'd be quite happy to get her one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's awesome.
But yeah, honestly, I'm so looking forward to getting home today and just watching a bit of Empire Strikes Back with her. Just that first half hour. Be so good. Yeah, loving it. So good. Yeah, man. How do we even get into that? Oh yeah, just like state-of-the-art special effects and stuff. Pretty cool.
Sort of went all the way from the ocean to Star Wars.
Oh, I'm real gutted as well. I took Roots for a walk this morning, and there was the market on, and it's like it's a bit of an higgledy-piggledy market today. It's just like there was this one thing was just all old DVDs and that, but they were like real cheap and stuff. Because obviously we don't really like, a lot of people don't watch DVDs now and that. It's more
no, they don't. Do they? I'm not gonna lie, I don't know when the last time I watched one of my DVDs was. No. I've still got like a load, but I don't put them on.
But I saw the whole Sharp box set on there for 10 quid, and I nearly bought it, but then I came back to because I didn't have any cash on me, and I was like, I'm going to get a tenner and I'm going to go buy that whole box set, but then I just forgot it until this moment now. But that's I really hope, because he's probably going to be there again at another point, but the whole box set, which was like it looked huge, and it was only a tenner. I thought that's pretty good for that, isn't it?
Mate, Drew, you should definitely do that, mate. You're in for a treat. That's like prime time 90s television, man, that is. I love that like every one is basically like a movie as well. Like every one is between like an hour and 2 hours long.
Oh, is it?
So good. Oh, mate, so good.
Yeah,
and obviously
it's
like
a
Bernard
big
Cornwell.
box set.
Yeah, Bernard Cornwell, the same guy that writes Last Kingdom, so just as good quality writing as The Last Kingdom, but set in Napoleonic times with Sean Bean rather than set in Viking/Saxon times with whoever plays Uhtred, son of Uhtred.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I remember just even the way everything was laid out on the table, it just like looked way more appealing with all the films and that. And I was thinking like, oh, I want to watch all these, you know. But like, it's a bit different to when you just scrolling through Google or whatever, like, you know.
Man, they are absolutely fantastic. Like to me, they have such a good balance between like genuinely good writing and then like epic battles. You know, got a little bit of romance in them. You know, it's great. Got loads of Sean Bean calling people a bastard.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, that alone is what you want, because no one can say it better. Sean Bean
Northern
can
accent.
It's just great. Every episode as well, he'll find somebody he doesn't like and just call them it. It's great. Okay. What the hell? What just happened?
What the hell?
What just happened there, man?
God.
Oh my God, there was just an explosion in Drew's room.
Whoa, that burnt my hair.
Mate, what the hell?
What was that, man?
I literally just lit this light, randomly picked it up and lit it because, you know, and it went woof, and like and it wouldn't turn off, and just like did this massive like cloud of flame. Oh,
mate,
so
why
weird.
did that happen? Do you not even know why that happened?
I don't know whether it's because I've been doing all of the sanding in here, and it's
like there's a bit of sand in the air,
and it's the
like a bit of wood,
and like really fine dust, and lacquer might be super flammable. I don't know if that's the case, and that's weird.
Mate, that was mental. It was just like a fire, like literally insane. Like a fireball, just suddenly, just like.
And I didn't want to drop the lighter because it was still on fire as well. It like when I took my finger off, it didn't turn off, so I was just like shaking it.
Oh, mate, that was mental.
That was weird,
mate. I love how
it's always something, isn't
it?
It goes from like you disconnecting to like a fireball spawning in your room.
Mate, that was so funny. Yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, it was like, oh, for F's sake, and stuff. Like when you like cutting off, and then this week there's just like a massive fireball.
That was
what
weird.
The hell?
I'm scared to like, try the lighter again now.
Go on, do it.
Shall I?
Dare you?
Do it.
Now it won't even light.
It
was like all the gas came out at once or something, but it was huge. That was so
mate,
weird.
I've never known that, but that was a crazy fireball, man. I saw it happen.
I was about to die. Like, oh my God, what the hell?
Like, turns out that Drew just like left the gas on his oven. Just the whole apartment just blows
Mate, that
up.
was so surprising.
Yeah, that was nuts. I've never seen that happen ever with a lighter before.
No, it like literally just went.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy,
weird.
man. That is crazy. That is crazy.
I'm definitely going to put that full screen when I edit the pod.
Yeah, oh man, you're going to have to, yeah. Drew almost died from a fireball explosion. Yeah.
I want to see what my eyes are like.
Oh man, do you want to... I think they call them alligator people. You know, this is a pretty gruesome thing I'm about to say. So sensitive people... Maybe join us back in 60 seconds. But apparently after the atomic bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there was like that sort of not so sweet spot where you'd be like close enough to the blast that you'd get fully effed up, but not close enough that you just get like eviscerated.
So you get burned.
Yeah, but like savagely, like nuclear,
like
radiation burn. Not even, you know what I mean? And apparently it would have set us like not enough to kill people, or at least some people, but enough to essentially like melt their bodies. And apparently it was so bad that these people had their like eyes, ears, and nose all like melted. And all you would see on their face was just like this gaping black hole where their mouth was. And I think they called them alligator people. And I don't, to be honest, really know why they called them alligator people, because it doesn't really sound like
what,
they
so
would
they
have looked
survived?
like an Yes.
What, and like for
I don't know.
after?
I don't know how long for. I think some of them lived for years afterwards.
What?
You can see some pictures if you want to. I mean, if you want, it's quite a gruesome thing to look up. But if you look up like survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you can find pictures of them. And it's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrific to even look at it, because, you know, like as a human being, you naturally look at someone and you sort of like imagine that being you, and it just seems so like awful. But yeah, just like ears, eyes, nose melted, and yeah, they'd call them alligator people. I don't really know why, because as I said, I don't really know why they called them. I don't know if it was maybe more to do with the color. That, you know, they looked like, you know how alligators almost have like a blacky, grey scales.
Yeah.
It might be because of the colour of their skin, what they look like, rather than obviously because their heads went all elongated, which obviously they didn't. But yeah, the idea that it was like so hot that it would just like melt your nose and your eyes and your ears, so that all you would have is just this like gaping hole where your mouth was.
They were called ant-walking alligators.
Right. Ant-walking alligators. Yeah, I don't know why they were called that. Yeah, weird, very weird and specific name, isn't it? You can see that maybe why they look a bit more like an ant or something.
Yeah, eyeless and faceless, with their heads transformed into blackened alligator hides, displaying red holes indicating mouths.
Oh, mate, that's the worst place to be, isn't it?
So you just put a straw in their mouth and just like...
Yeah, well, that's the thing as well, because I think some people did obviously try and keep them alive to be like, feed, because technically, you could feed them and give them sustenance still, but I mean, at that stage, you just rather be dead, wouldn't it? It makes me think of like One by Metallica,
Imagine the pain of surviving that, like what that would actually feel like, your face being melted off.
And just and it'd feel weird as well, because obviously, like you take in like 90% of what you take in from the world is either through your eyes, your ears, or your nose. And if all three of them are taken away and you're reduced literally just a touch because you're blind, you're deaf, and you have no sense of smell, you wouldn't know what the frickin' hell was going on. If anything, it would just feel sketchy. You'd feel people touching you every now and again, but you wouldn't know frickin' who it was or what was going on. And then you'd like feel someone like squirting some juice in your mouth to try and keep you alive or something. You're just like, you know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, mate. Even the shock, because you probably wouldn't fully know what was going on. One minute you were just like, on your bike.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know that had happened, like with the bomb and stuff.
Oh, yeah, horrific.
Man. There must be like a point in pain where it just stops, like your brain just switches off.
They say that with being burnt alive, don't they?
Yeah.
I can't remember how long it is, but they say like it's excruciating pain apparently for about 60 seconds, something like that, like 60 seconds. And then after that, essentially it burns through, like the flame, once your flames have burnt through your nerves, your nerve endings, it doesn't hurt after that. So like you can smell yourself burning alive because you can essentially like smell your meat cooking. But apparently it's not like...
What about your fresh ones that it's going... Because it rises, doesn't it? Like, and then into your face and then your neck, your neck. You know what I mean? You can imagine it would be numb from about mid-waist down and then you'd still be feeling it all going up like... Oh, that must be
that's a good point. It
like when you get in the ocean,
equal.
You're like doing that weird walk where it's like cold, but the cold is like rising each time you take a step.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but
you hear like with... the outer body experience stuff and that as well, like I've listening to loads of those, like people in accidents, it's almost like your body will like pass out or you'll leave your body, like your soul or something will like leave your body, with intense trauma and shock. And it's like I can imagine how like something like that would cause that to happen as well. Like,
I think a lot of people just like pass out, don't they? Like pass out either from the pain, or you hear like a lot of people like die of shock. Yeah, like apparently there's been people before, and they've been like attacked by wild animals and stuff, and they've like died of shock because it's like so overwhelming to your senses, your body just essentially just shuts down.
Or like people having their arms amputated or legs amputated, they're like, and then they're just like, because they just pass out. It's like too much for your heart.
your heart can't take it, and your brain can't take it, so it's just like system shut down. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's not very nice.
No.
Do you want to hear?
I wish I had power over that, like to like, so you just knock. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Just go to sleep.
Yeah.
Or what do you mean? Or what do you mean, like power just to like, override something like dying of shock?
Yeah, or pain. Just being able to just like turn off the pain. Just turn off the pain, man.
There was that famous Buddhist, wasn't there? What was he? I can't remember what he was protesting.
Tak Nang Kun.
Kak Man Kum?
Tak Nang Tang. Tak Nang.
Was that him?
Tak Nang.
It was like a Buddhist, wasn't it? I can't even remember what he was protesting.
He set himself on fire. That was the Rage Against the Machine.
Rage cover.
Yeah, he sat in front of a tank, didn't he? He stopped this like tank.
Poured gasoline all over.
Yeah, and
wasn't it at Tiananmen Square?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. And he apparently like people that were there witnessing said he didn't flinch or like cry out in pain at all.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah,
he just, like,
I watched one and it was like
sat there in like the lotus position.
And he'd do it, but then you obviously can't stop your body from like reacting. So like he just started like shaking like this, but not doing anything. I don't know if this is a different one I saw, but I watched one, and he was like meditating and just completely set himself on fire. I didn't move, but then his body started doing weird stuff because obviously it was just like a spasm, like a reaction, because it was just getting burnt alive. But he still didn't make any noise, and I was like, that's just savage.
Yeah, that is savage, man, isn't it? Try on a bit more of a positive note. Go give you a little story about this lady called Betty Robinson. She was an Olympic runner. She was an Olympic runner that was involved in a plane crash in 1931 and was wrongly pronounced dead upon first being discovered. She spent 7 months in a coma, and then after that it took her 2 years to learn how to walk again. But in 1936, she rejoined the US Olympic relay team and ended up taking home a gold medal.
Whoa,
Well
mate,
done.
that's such a quick turnaround.
That is such an impressive and positive story, isn't it? We balanced a little bit the last couple of conversations, which were really, really depressing. But yeah, doctors believed she'd never compete again. She never fully regained mobility in one of her knees and could not get into a starting crouch. But she did compete in the 4x100 meter relay at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. She ran the third leg of the relay, and the US team won the gold medal.
Wow.
Nice.
What a comeback story. What a
Mate,
comeback
I see
story.
videos like that all the time of people that have been like there's a guy, Michael Antonio, English striker, plays for West Ham. Pretty decent.
Yeah.
He got in like a life-threatening car crash not too long ago, and I think it was probably like pretty much assumed that he would never play football, or like may never like walk sort of thing. And he posted a video not too long ago of his rehabilitation over the year, like just getting ready, and now he's like fully back in West Ham training, like probably will be playing for them again next season. Like crazy stuff. And to see every step of the way where like at first he like couldn't really walk, to then like starting to build up to run and jump and like all these things, to then actually be like fully fit and well, more than fully fit. Like hardly anyone could actually go out and like run and play a full Premier League football game.
Yeah, sure.
To do that like entire recovery is just insane.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing I do respect about football, because I'm really not into football, and I have no interest in playing it. But I do respect that the people that do it, especially to a high level, are like ridiculously physically fit.
It's such a quick sport, like more than ever now. You watch sometimes referees will go out with like a camera on their shirt, or like even players sometimes in pre-season will do it, and you don't quite realise watching it from a TV just how quick it is as it goes, but it's like insane. Like you have like a
90 minutes as well,
millisecond
it's a
to
long
think.
time.
Yeah, you have like a millisecond to think and react for 90 minutes.
Mate,
Insane.
that's really cool. Like, but I imagine him putting cameras on the actual players and that. Like, I've not even thought about that, but that I can imagine that being epic. Editing it all together after, and like just always following the ball, like the ball coming to a player, and then just like the camera switching every time. That'd be like super fast paced and stuff, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
it's a completely different
octane.
experience from like watching it on TV. It's crazy.
You'd feel like you're in the game more, I reckon.
100%.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. Another cool little fact for you guys. You know, obviously, how Friday the 13th is considered like an unlucky day or like a bad day, an evil day. Obviously, I mean, to be fair, I think nowadays.
The day I was born,
Was it actually
Friday the 13th, my lucky day.
Grimberger?
Yeah.
Grimberger himself, the unholy child. Obviously it's considered. I mean, for me, whenever I think of Friday the 13th nowadays, I just think of Jason Voorhees and the Friday the 13th movies, and I think probably there are a certain amount percentage of the sort of the Western population that probably just do as well, which is quite funny, really, isn't it? Just completely hijacked by like somebody that just came up with like a hilarious horror movie character in the 80s. But obviously, originally, in terms of Christianity, it was considered like an unlucky day. But like a lot of things, it was basically demonized by Christianity when Christianity sort of gained a strong foothold in the West. Because in paganism, Friday the 13th was actually considered a day to honor the goddess, either Freya or Frigga, depending on how you want to say it. Obviously, basically in Anglo-Saxon paganism and Norse paganism is essentially the same, but they just have slightly different names for the deities. So, for example, like Odin in Scandinavian paganism is like Woden in Saxon. So in Saxon they call it like Frigga, and in Norse they call it Freya. But yeah, Friday, we obviously get the name Friday, which to this day obviously call it Friday. It's like Freya's Day or Frigga's Day. But yeah, Friday the 13th originally was like considered a very lucky day and a day to honor women and the goddess, like Freya or Frigga.
That's so cool.
And I think as well, something like in Norse mythology and Saxon pagan mythology, like I think she had something like, because one of the things that Freya is also the goddess of, I don't know if you knew this, she's also the goddess of cats. And I think she had like 13 cats or something like that. So it's almost like, you know, the 13.
Is that why like black cats are also supposed to be like unlucky on Friday the 13th?
I have no idea, man. It might very. I mean, it would make sense, doesn't it? It makes sense. I'm not 100% sure.
It'd be cool to read
though.
all the stories about like Norse mythology and stuff.
100%.
Oh man, definitely. There are fascinating tales behind it. And I know as well. I don't know in depth about this, so you know, if anybody's interested in this, just do a bit more research because I can only tell you the bare bones. As a bloke, I'm just a bit ignorant to it. I know there's something to do as well. It's all linked to like the woman's natural cycle as well. Like apparently, you know, like there's so many weeks in between every Friday the 13th, and that like represents like a certain cycle between like women, because you know it's all like it's all between like, you know, like cycles of the moon and stuff, like, you know, and like you know, like a woman's like menstrual cycle and that. So it's all like it's all linked to like Friday the 13th and like the moon cycles, and then like, you know, Freya and. But yeah, very cool. So originally it was all a day about like honouring Freya, Frigga, and you know, like women in general, and like, the whole like moon cycles and everything. Yeah, and
that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, but it's really weird. Yeah, man, me and you both. But it's like really weird because if you ask a Christian, I think as well, and I don't know if was just made up or if it just so happened this coincided and this actually happened on Friday the 13th. Which is like a coincidence, and nowadays that's why people say Friday the 13th is considered unlucky. Is I think Friday the 13th, it was a Friday the 13th when like the Knights Templar, who obviously are like one of the most, if not the most famous order of knights ever, they were basically expelled from Christianity. Do you know about that?
No.
At all? I think it was like a German king or something that expelled them.
A lot of them.
They
were
basically.
killed, weren't they?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things. They were like almost like a victim of their own success.
Perhaps the coolest arms that anyone's ever wore as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like
Knights Templar.
The helmet.
Yeah,
There's a bit of like a Knights Templar helmet, isn't it?
So cool.
The Krampus helmet. But yeah, I think they'd almost become a victim of their own success. They become so powerful and so rich that like some of the most powerful people in the West almost like had beef with them, you know, or either that or like owed them money, or they were just jealous of them. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was like either a German king or some German nobleman or something. Anyway, he accused them of heresy and accused them of being devil worshippers. And then essentially he abused his power and ended up getting them kicked out of like Christendom essentially, and then demonized them. And that's how they fell out of, they basically just like crumbled and then fell to nothing. But I think that happened on Friday the 13th, or at least that's what they say. So if you ask a lot of people, they'll say the reason that Friday the 13th is considered an unlucky day is because that's the day the Knights Templar was kicked out of Christianity. But actually, if you go back further, it's like a demonization of paganism, as they did with lots of things. They either adopted it, like Easter and Yule, or they would demonize it like they did with Friday the 13th. That's
one of my favourite facts I've heard on the pod in a long time. I'm gonna rehash that a lot because
Yeah.
I've always said, my parents have always said, you know, because obviously it was the day I was born. It's my lucky day and my lucky number as well. In fact, number 13. So it's cool to know that there actually is a weird like luckiness to it
lucky.
historically.
It's not actually got. It used to be considered a lucky day, and it was all about all about like honouring the goddess Freya and Frigga and like women's cycles and 13 cats and all that stuff. So
cool.
Not actually unlucky at all. I do think paganism in general is fascinating, isn't it? I was randomly doing some research just last night actually. Do you know what? I already forgot what it's called. But it's because, to be honest, I don't think I've not ever really talked about it. I never really looked into it before, and I was, you know, every now and again you'll find a subject and you're almost like startled how much you don't know anything about it. Like you don't know any like a lot of things you won't know anything about it, but you'll have like heard about it. You know what I mean? Or like you'll have, you know, you don't have to be an expert on cars, for example, but you know what a car is. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? But I didn't know anything about this at all. So I've been quite interested recently in Persian history. And one of the reasons I've been interested, obviously, there's this whole conflict going on in Iran, like Iran and Israel and stuff. Obviously, like Iran have been funding Hamas, and as a result, now Israel and Iran are at war, things like that. And there was obviously an Iranian revolution, Islamic revolution back in the 70s. And as a result, nowadays, Iran, as we would see it, is like an extremist culture. What I mean by that is like women are forced to wear like hijab out in public, aren't allowed things like higher education, aren't allowed to leave the house without a male escort, things like that. Things that to us seem obviously very extreme. I mean, I'm sure we can all agree we wouldn't like it if our mums, friends, sisters, daughters, whatever, had to live like that. before the Islamic Revolution in Iran, Iran it would have been like going to like Italy or Greece. You know, obviously it had like a
I've
cool,
seen
like
pictures
a very nice,
of like
Yeah,
of, people walking around and how like
it was like
normal.
They had like people had pretty much the same rights as they would in this country. You know, like women would walk around in miniskirts with their hair out. You know, you go to the beach, people would be wearing bikinis. You go to cinema, you go to nice meals. So it'd be very similar to like going to like a Mediterranean country, which is not radical. You know, like it'd be like similar to going to like Greece, or Italy, or anything like that. You know, any of those countries sort of like in that Mediterranean basin. And one of the things I thought was really interesting, I was thinking, okay, obviously another thing I think is very interesting about Persian history. So basically, like Iranians, if you go back far enough, they are Persian, right? Is obviously I think most people have heard of the Persian Empire, and even if you don't know anything about the Persian Empire per se, you will have probably at some point say watched like the movie 300. And you will probably know that the people that the Spartans were fighting in that movie was the Persian Empire, which is in itself immediately starts triggering more of an interest in me. You know, that whole Battle of Thermopylae, as it's known, where 300 Spartans stood up against the Persian Empire. Was it like 10,000 Persians against 300 Spartans? It's an inspirational story. It's been passed down generation to generation in the West ever since it happened, doesn't it? Because it's a whole tale of basically what you can accomplish if you're like brave and honourable and stuff like that, isn't it? Like that 300 Spartans could like defend so many people, and the only reason that the Persians even ended up winning was because there was like a traitor that showed the Persians how to get around the back. But even that, they became such martyrs, the Spartans, that they basically caused the whole rest of Greece to like unite and rise up for the first time ever. Because before, as you know, it was almost like the Athenians were doing their thing, they were like really into democracy and science and that. The Spartans were into their thing. Both of them are Greek, but the Spartans were just like all about fricking training and like learning how to be the best warriors ever. So they didn't really sort of see eye to eye that much. But then they united and then eventually ended up defeating Persia. And if they didn't, obviously then Greece would have been absorbed into the Persian Empire. But so I was thinking, Persian Empire, the whole like, Xerxes was the head of Persia at the time, King Xerxes. I was thinking, okay, that's very interesting. So I started looking into it a little bit more. And I was thinking like, okay, so what were like, they obviously had like their version of like a pagan pantheon, the same way that in Greece we know that they used to worship Zeus and Hercules and Hera and all of that, Apollo and all of them. And obviously Roman essentially was the same. They just had slightly different names for it, Jupiter, Mars, and blah, blah, blah. And obviously we already talked, we know that Saxons and the Norse pagans, it was like Woden, Odin and all that. We know that in Druidic paganism of the British Isles traditionally, it was all like, Morrigan, Herne the Hunter and all of that. So I was like, okay, so what were the Persians into? I can't remember what it's called now. Would you do me a favour and type in, I don't know, something like along the lines of what is the name of Persian pagan religion or something like that? It's an interesting name. I feel like I might have heard of it before, but I couldn't actually tell you 100% if I have or not.
Zoroastrianism.
Yes, Zoroastrianism. Very interesting name in itself, don't you think? And it's it's really interesting. So the Persians used to believe they had like I think what's called it's debated, but it's almost like a monotheistic religion in that regard. It's almost a bit like Christianity, where there's like one divine ruler in there. So it's not like a pantheon like you have in most pagan beliefs, or like you say in Egyptian paganism. Obviously they had a pantheon of gods, didn't they? In this one it seems to be almost like monotheist, and as I was looking into it, it made me very much wonder myself if Christianity was highly influenced by this religion.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the first things it says here, man.
Is it?
Yeah, it says influenced many other religions, including Judaism, Christianity and Islam. So
it's interesting. The thing that from what I read, I didn't actually read anything that openly actually said that, but that's really interesting because that's the first thing that came into my head. Because it's all going on about how there's like one divine ruler, but then there's like this he's in eternal battle with this like powerful demon that lives in the world. And I was like, mate, this is basically like describing like the devil and God.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder. I was like, man, I think Christianity is really, really inspired by this, but you don't ever hear it, But I was finding it really interesting because I thought, all you hear about in a lot of countries, because obviously Islam essentially is a quite a warlike religion. What I mean by that is like Muhammad himself was a warlord, and he took countries by force and essentially sort of like spread out and then sort of conquered countries, and then they would enforce Islam on those countries. But obviously, all of these countries have their own unique, interesting histories, and I think the Persian history is one of the most fascinating of all of them. I mean, you know that song "Boat with the Moon" that I absolutely love, that we did a cover of, which is actually on our Pandora's Box YouTube. That song is based on a Persian poem by a poet called Hafez, who is considered one of the best poets of all time. He was a Persian poet. So back in the ancient Persian days, you had some of the best poets and musicians, like considered of history. You had like great science. You had this like fascinating pagan religion culture. And I just thought, basically thought really, really fascinating, interesting stuff.
This is fascinating. This is so fascinating. You know the Nietzschean book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra? Apparently Zarathustra was the Persian priest that actually came up with the religion and preached the religion originally.
Really?
Apparently.
So what's the connection between Nietzsche and...
Zoroastrianism was founded in Persia in the 6th century BCE by the priest Zarathustra, known to Greeks as Zoroaster. Zarathustra reformed existing Persian polytheism, with his teachings about the highest god, Ahura Mazda, and his primeval clash with.
So polytheism, by the way, is just the belief that you believe in more than one god. So like North paganism or Druidic paganism would be considered polytheism.
I wonder what their poly one was like even before that.
Yeah. Poly basically just means several, and mono means one.
Yeah, that's so interesting though. Yeah, it's about the highest god, Ahura Mazda, and his primeval clash with Angra Mainyu.
Yeah,
the destructive spirit.
Yeah, almost like the god and the devil.
That's insane, man. I've never heard anything about this. That's so cool.
Yeah, I know. It makes me almost like annoyed that it's not taught more. You know, like I think it's a really fascinating thing. I think Persia in itself is a really fascinating place.
I'm really annoyed that I didn't even know that Iran was Persia. That's because
I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people aren't, but I think
I love like
Prince
of Persia and stuff. And
Mate, apparently Freddie Mercury was Zoroastrian.
No way.
Apparently.
Mate, that is a fascinating
Queen frontman Freddie Mercury's Zoroastrian faith shaped his music. The singer-songwriter was far more religious than you think.
Mate, I am fascinated by that. The thing I'm interested about that, and don't get me wrong, it is one of those countries where it's starting to like... I always think like if you look at like Iran on a map, it's sort of in between India and say the Middle East. You know, it's like I guess it's still counted as the Middle East, is it? But it's like, you know, obviously the eastern side of it. But after that, you start getting quite close to India. But I know that obviously Freddie Mercury was he half Indian or fully Indian? I can't remember. He was born in India, right? Or was he born in London to Indian parents?
I didn't even know this. That's insane.
Yeah. Josh definitely knows it. I've spoken to him about it before. Freddie Mercury wasn't even his real name. His real name is like...
He was born in Tanzania.
There you go. He was born in Tanzania. So like, was it like Indian parents or something like that? And if you, what's his real name? I can't even. I feel like I should just remember it, to be honest.
His parents were called Bomi Bolsara and Jer Bolsara. Let me see if I can find his real name as well.
Something obviously Bolsara.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm interested why. He's got that religion. Do you know what?
Farouk Bolsara.
Farouk Bolsara, yeah. And where did you say he was from?
Zanzibar, I think I said.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's also I think that originally was part of the Persian Empire, so that's probably why.
Oh no, Tanzania.
Yeah, no, I think that was part of the Persian Empire originally as well, so that would explain why. Because obviously it's not the boundaries as we would see them today were obviously a bit different in those days. And obviously the Persian Empire was like a really massive empire, so they had what like several of what you would see as like modern countries today. Like, you know, a lot of the ones that end in like Stan, I know that might sound funny, but there's like a lot of them isn't like Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, and there's like quite a lot. I think all of them were like part of the Persian Empire, or at least several of them were, as well as like Iran and places like that, yeah. But, yeah, no, fascinating. Well, we found out today that Freddie Mercury was into the old Persian religion. That is great. That's quite cool, isn't it?
Really cool.
Cool that he said he like basically like was inspired, some of his music was inspired by that as well.
Sounds like they've really gone downhill, man, from Persia to Iran. Like, God.
Well, yeah. No, I sort of agree with you, Drew, but I think it's one of those things, isn't it? I think when you're a child, I don't know about you guys, but I think as a child, you think that most things in life are linear. And as you get older, you realise actually a lot of things in life aren't linear. And I think especially for us growing up in England, Yeah, well, some things go up and down, or some things go down for ages and then up, or some things just continually go down or continually go up. And I think, especially for us living in a country like the UK, on the whole, for the last literally like 2,000 years, our country has been on like a slow linear increase. Do you know what I mean? Like right through from like when the Romans inhabited and we were essentially like living in mud huts like ancient Brythonic people. We've slowly gone up, right through to say, you know, by the 1500s we had like trade routes, like some of the best navy in the world, like all this stuff. By the time like 17th, 18th century, we're making all these like scientific breakthroughs, you know, like Industrial Revolution, Charles Darwin, all this stuff, right through to modern day. You know, like British people are responsible for so many of the best inventions in the world, whether it's like, I always get it back. I can't remember like exactly which one it is. I can never remember which way round it is. Either a British person invented the computer and then an American invented the internet.
I think we invented the internet.
Oh, right. So an American invented the computer, I think. The first like modern computer, but then the British invented the internet. But like whether it's like, you know, a British person invented the light bulb, you know, trains, like railway systems. We've invented so much in the UK, basically. So much stuff. We could literally go on and on for like probably like 4 hours if we wanted, just on British inventions. Oh, that's just an interesting thing we could talk about that next week, actually. Most fascinating British inventions. But yeah, my point being is that like, but a lot of societies obviously don't. You know, a lot of societies, they might have peaked like 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. And even to be fair, and I don't mean this at all as a diss, I love Greek culture and I love the Greek people in general. It's one of my favourite, if not my favourite place to go on holiday. But you could even say that about the Greeks, to be fair, couldn't you? Both Greece and Italy have got awful economies. The main thing they've got going for them, to be honest, is like delicious food and tourism. If you compare both of those countries, Italy and Greece, because they're very similar in this regard, 2,000 years ago, Italy was essentially the center of the universe, the center of the world, at least. You know, it had, you know, the best of the best of everything, pretty much. If you go back 1,000 years more, that applied to Greece. They had the best warriors, best science, best mathematics, best surgery, best philosophers, best theaters. You know, like best like arts.
Places and cultures like Babylon as well. Does that even have like a descendant now?
Not really. I think Babylon is in modern day Iraq, isn't it?
Right.
Is it? I think so.
Because that would have been like one of the main hubs at one point, wouldn't it? It used to be the hanging gardens and stuff like that.
It's considered one of the ancient
wonders of the world,
isn't it? The lost gardens of Babylon. Yeah, I think it's in modern day Iraq. I think that's just off the top of my head. Yeah, but yeah, amazing. And obviously, yeah, I mean, you could go back and even say even more. Obviously, ones that we don't even really know about. Obviously, like Göbekli Tepe and stuff. But yeah, as I said, I guess it's
some
like
of those in the heyday.
Yeah, man, for sure.
It all comes around, doesn't it? It makes you wonder when we're gonna like change.
Well, it makes you wonder.
I want next week as well. I watched this podcast recently from a professor in a London university, and he was a professor of war. He's a Canadian guy, but he's lived here for like 20 years, and he was like giving this argument that there's going to be a civil war that kicks off in the West, and it's beyond the point now where it can even not happen, in his opinion.
Oh, what was that guy's name, Drew? Can you remember?
I can't remember.
I've got a podcast saved on trigonometry about it.
What
podcast did you watch it on?
It's this guy. It's this English guy, and he was like sitting at a table.
I reckon that might have been Trigonometry Man, because I introduced you to the Trigonometry podcast, didn't I?
Yeah,
about a month ago or something.
Yeah, and I haven't watched any, but I come across this on YouTube, and it said about brink of civil war, or like.
Mate, I've downloaded the podcast, but I haven't listened to it yet. And if it's the same one I'm thinking of,
man. Yeah,
it's like a middle-aged white dude looking guy. Yeah. That's the only thing I can say right now, because I haven't watched it.
The one who's interviewing him is a younger guy.
Yeah, Konstantin. Oh, I can't remember his last name. He's like basically an immigrant from Russia.
This is different. This is an English guy that interviews him.
He is English now, but he was an immigrant from Russia when he was a child.
Does he have a proper English accent in that?
Yes, he speaks very quite like smart and English accent.
Yeah, cool.
But he when he was a child, he was an immigrant from Russia, and that's one of the reasons I find him interesting to talk about, because I think he's written a book, for example, called An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West, and it's all about how, you know, for him, growing up in Russia, it was a really brutal, oppressive life, and he thinks the West is amazing, and one thing that he thinks is really upsetting, and this is why he wrote his book, An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West, is because there's this weird thing in the West, especially in countries like the UK and America, where we like hate on ourselves, And we talk about our culture and our society as if our culture and our society is awful, whereas actually it's not. And we've talked about this a lot in the past, haven't we? Because we've talked about how people like Ruta, who's a presenter on AW Radio, is Lithuanian. She grew up in the Soviet Union, and she said how awful that was and why she loves living in England. And Konstantin, the guy that has the Trigonometry podcast, he grew up in Russia, and he says the same thing. And it's like it's a very weird thing that we have, like, we demonize our own culture and act like it's awful. And that's obviously, as we've said in the past, not to say it's perfect, because nothing in life ever is perfect. But comparatively speaking, it's a very decent place to be. And it's very strange that it seems like such a large portion of the population, or at least a certain portion of the population, puts it down like it does, you know, rather than being grateful, you know, for the And
I wonder if this was the case back in the day during like the ancient Greek times and the Roman times, if they were like, God, this is an awful place to be.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I think that maybe you might have seen that towards the end of maybe the Roman Empire and stuff, potentially. I don't know. I mean, you certainly saw a lot of like gluttony and laziness and debauchery towards the end of the Roman period. And I think you can see parallels between that and modern day. You know, I mean, the same way that like a lot of people would have just been spending all of their time drinking wine, getting fat, doing, you know, whatever drugs you could get on. Because obviously there would have been a large market for drugs in those days, the same way there are now. We've just been taken in slightly different forms. And just probably spending all their days at orgies. It would be the same way that like a lot of guys would be spending all their money on OnlyFans and you know and prostitutes, and you know it'd been I think so. There's a lot of parallels, almost like a negative lifestyle. You know, nothing's about self betterment. It's all about, and it's not about long term gratification. It's all about short term gratification. What makes me feel good now? What makes me feel good now is fatty food, wine, prostitutes, drugs. You know, whereas obviously if the people that founded Rome and made Rome great, if they had that attitude, they would have never got anywhere, would they? It was all about self-betterment, you know, military and discipline and mental betterment and, you know, control and, you know, and, trying to constantly improve upon your knowledge of things and stuff like that, you know. It's weird, isn't it? You see, you know, people get complacent and then stagnant and then self-destructive and also, I think ungrateful is a big word as well, you know. You stop appreciating. You know, your forebears create this very good place for you to live in, and it's almost like you become so used to it, you don't appreciate it, and also you start picking flaws in it and stuff, you know? It's almost like, you know, you get like a nice meal given to you, and you're really focusing on what you don't like about the meal, rather than the fact that the actual meal in itself is actually a really decent
I think
meal,
it is human nature.
Yeah. Yes, I think it is.
Unfortunately.
But I think it's one of those things that, you know, the more you practice something, the more prevalent it becomes. And that's why I think that like practicing good rituals and good behaviour is so important, because it leads, you know, whatever you do on a regular basis, you will do more of. Yeah. You know? That's
it can certainly be actively avoided, can't it?
Yeah.
And that's the more positive way to be.
If you practice gratitude and positivity, you're way more likely to end up positive and full of gratitude than somebody that practices negativity and entitlement. You know,
100%.
I know.
100, man. Right,
100.
Should we leave it there, guys? But yeah, next week let's talk about what was it? Did you say you wanted to talk about something next week, Drew? What was it?
The podcast Civil War, and it's actually this guy called Andrew Gold, and it's
Andrew
Heretics.
Gold.
Andrew Gold Heretics.
I love.
Podcast.
Sorry. Yeah, do you know what? I think I got them confused, because I follow both Heretics and Trigonometry. Yeah, it probably was Andrew Gold's Heretics. I didn't know that you followed that one, man.
I just come across it like recently, and I just watched it because I thought it's an interesting thing. But
it's one of my favourite podcasts, Heretics.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah,
and
it's really good.
You'll like that then, man. But it'll be interesting to talk about, because it was this whole thing about it's hard to get someone to like kill someone else, but it's not hard to get people to disrupt services and do things like that. And that's basically what's happening with these riots and stuff. And it's a small number now, but it causes this much violence. And if you just times that by 10, had 20,000 people like rioting and stuff, that would be enough to disrupt the whole system and that. And it was very interesting, you know, and almost saying like it's going to happen, whether it's in England or France or somewhere, but in the Midwest somewhere. It's going to kick off, and then it'll trigger all around. And I'm like, I don't want this to happen. Like, you know, like I'm like, God, like we're probably going to see World War III in our lifetime. You know, like
I mean, I really hope not, but we should all listen to it, and then we can all share our individual thoughts on it. You know?
Yeah, link it in the chat, man. I'll definitely give it a listen.
Yeah, I'll link it because I say I've downloaded it on my Spotify, so I'll link it in the chat. But yeah, I mean, I think as you know, one thing that I've sort of a thought process that I've had for a long time as well is just that like extremism breeds extremism. So you know, the more you see extremism on one end, inevitably then the more you'll see pushback of a similar level of extremism, but on the opposite end. So what I'm obviously saying by that is, if say a section of the far left becomes even more extreme, then what you're going to see is a pushback from the people on the far right, and it's going to push them to become even more far right, and even more extreme, you know. And then eventually, what that's going to lead to is massive battles, civil war. You know, you see a riot.
I'm glad
on one
I don't
end.
live in a city. I can tell you that.
Oh, me too, man. You'll see a riot on one end, and then there'll be a counter protest or a counter riot from the people that believe the exact polar opposite of that. And then there's clashes, and then blah 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 blah. Obviously, becomes hugely political and causes massive upheaval in the country. But we'll talk about that, and then we'll also talk about some of the most fascinating ever British inventions, because that'd be quite cool, wouldn't it? Yeah,
definitely.
All right, guys.
Sounds
well,
like a
thanks
plan.
very much, everyone, to listen to another Pandora's Box.
Whoop, whoop.
If you don't already, please follow us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. Just look up Pandora's Box Podcast. Our TikTok has been stagnant for a long time, but it's going to be coming back with a vengeance.
We're opening the box, man.
Yeah, we're opening the box. So if you could give us a like, follow, subscribe, all that stuff, we'd appreciate it. We love you. Have a great week. We'll see you same time, same place next time. Cheers, guys. Nice one, guys.